Hey, welcome. Thanks everyone for joining us today for the Breaking Barriers collective report unpacking. So this is a report that we released today. Britain can't afford to lose another generation. My name is Gavin O'Mara and I'm joined by Olly Newton from Edge Foundation. Olly, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I was bopping along to that funky music from the event video there.
It's
Luckily,
quite
you
good
cut
to be able
away
to bring it
just
back
as
again,
I
isn't
stopped.
it?
Yeah.
There's a weird bit at the end where it's actually me looking up to the sky of trying to look at a bit of background on there actually.
You're asking for answers.
Yeah, basically.
Send me a
So
sign.
today's the day of the report launch. This is from the Breaking Barriers collective that we did in partnership with you guys at Edge, which is like really cool. We've had miraculous timing for Breaking Barriers. So we gathered together about 64 different experts within youth employment, youth engagement, joined in London for literally a couple of days after the Melbourne Interim Review come out to be looking at youth employment. Today's the day that we're going live. We've had a new Prime Minister come into power yesterday, a new cabinet reshuffle. Today we had the latest Office for National Statistics data come out this morning, which is showing that youth employment is now at 16.4%, highest level of unemployment for 11 years. That's 1 in 6 young people looking for work at the moment in this quarter, but with only 712,000 vacancies. So the timing couldn't be better to have an action-focused report, which is looking at solutions. Everything about this meant to be solution-led. And Olly, you put the report together, and it's been brilliant. What were the main things that you sort of took from the day that you sort of found trying to distill it down into the report?
Yeah, so the collective event was great, Gavin, and this is a really good format that you've been pioneering for kind of really knotty policy issues like these, trying to get a lot of collaboration on the day between experts. There's no knottier problem than young people NEET. I ran the NEET policy team in DFE 20 years ago, and it felt like sometimes we're kind of talking about the same issues, then data sharing, getting it right. So progress needs to be made. We've got this amazing opportunity, as you said, with the Melbourne Review. So timing couldn't be better to do that. And the experts we had around the table, will meet a couple shortly, didn't let us down on the day. We came up with some brilliant ideas, and we've been just, as you say, distilling that down in our illegal moonshine still back at Edge HQ. And we've got 6 kind of key messages coming out of this. So I'll just run you through those quickly so that we kind of know the scope of what we're talking about. All of this kind of feeding into kind of Milburn and the way forward. So first big one was around creating a national framework for education to employment, and that's really speaking to the fact that a lot of good stuff is going on out there. We'll meet people who are involved in that, but it feels like it's a little bit random what's happening in your area, how it works, how young people find out about things. We need to kind of take that national picture, obviously complemented, as we'll say, a little bit with local action, but so that we can tell young people this is the way to go, this is where to go for help. And it feels like everything's become a bit patchy, and we don't really have that kind of national picture yet. Hopefully more to come on that. Second one was around building a youth employment system that prioritizes relationships and trust. I know this is something that's really dear to the heart, particularly of Roman, who's going to be joining us in just a moment. But it came out again and again on the day and since that actually some of what we're talking about isn't necessarily about the kind of policy interventions. It's about helping young people to build those relationships. So young people with a trusted adult, whether that's their careers advisor, their teacher, their scout leader, somebody who's got their back, looking out for them and helping them to kind of take their next step. And that can be pivotal in helping young people to not become NEET, and if they do become NEET, in getting themselves out. Third one kind of links to that first one I mentioned. It's about kind of clearer, more inclusive routes into work. So again, some of the paths that young people take when they're in this space are very disjointed. They try one thing, they go on benefits for a while, they come off, they try a voluntary sector program. Often when we talk to them, the reasons they've done things are pretty random, like their brother told them, they found out through their neighbour. It doesn't feel like there's always a very kind of clear, coherent route for young people. We wanted to think about number 4 now, place-based solutions. Now, this is very big at the moment. Obviously, Andy Burnham is very clear that place-based mayoral is going to be crucial. But in this area in particular, that's so important. We're talking about developing relationships between young people and small businesses. We're talking about helping young people to find mentors. We're talking about helping small businesses maybe to take on their first apprentice. All of that is so much better done at a local level than through kind of a massive national structure. So thinking about how we empower local communities to take action on this and choose the right thing, not necessarily a one size fits all from the centre, which is always such a temptation for policymakers. Number 5 is around creating an integrated cross-government opportunity strategy, and that is really crucial here. That having worked in government, the nature of government is very siloed between departments, even within departments. I think we all know that working in this space. It's not anyone's fault, but it is the nature of that kind of bureaucratic beast. And it's really nice to see the Milburn Review taking a proper cross-cutting look at this, and we need to continue that theme. So if we're going to get this right for young people, we need education, skills, housing, health, mental health, all working together to think, how can we make this work? And I know there's a lot of commitment there from the policymakers, but we need to overcome some of those kind of slightly archaic structures to kind of make that happen. And finally, of course, and I know this is dear to both of the hearts of the guests we're going to bring on in a moment, but putting young people's agency at the centre of reform. So really understanding what young people need, really listening, not thinking we kind of know better for them. And so I think everything that we're doing to kind of listen to their stories, understand things like the great youth voice census that kind of brings together thousands of young people's voices, all of these are really important. And I'm not suggesting for a minute, I don't think anyone is, that we can kind of make some tweaks to the system and then it'll be perfect. This is something that's going to be ongoing, listening to young people, listening to how they move through the system, and gradually improving their journeys over the coming years. So, yeah, it's a knotty issue. So no wonder the recommendations in the areas are really quite kind of broad and extensive. But we hope that that's kind of a useful framework for us to think about some of the actions we might take, particularly as the team think about the second report for Milburn.
Yeah, no, definitely, and that's brilliant. Like you've just highlighted that in no time. What if I could bring in our guests? So we've got Baz from Youth Employment UK. Baz was facilitating a group, was on stage, getting filmed. Baz was doing everything basically.
Yeah, we got our money's worth out of Baz.
Yeah, Baz really. I think Baz was on holiday and got like completely voted in for all of that stuff. And Roman from Breakout, who was on a youth session on the stage, brought with him a young person as well. Really cool insights from Amy on the day. Actually, Amy was like literally the star of the show, to be honest with you. But I wonder if I could bring in Baz and Roman. How are you both? So, thanks so much for joining us, guys. So, what for you has really stood out from the report? Because I can hear different voices from the stage, different voices from those different groups. Baz, what sort of stood out for you?
I think I think as Olly said, like the breadth of engagement with all the different challenges that exist for young people, and the focus on young people's voice as being at the heart of this. At Youth Employment UK, we of course run the Youth Voice Census, the largest annual survey of young people in the country. And for a long time, one of the things we've been pushing for and what we've successfully implemented in some combined authorities around the country is using that Youth Voice Census and using Youth Voice as a measure of the impact of youth-facing policy. So an understanding that Youth Voice shouldn't just be a kind of like tokenistic and consultative exercise. It can be a way of measuring and understanding what should be done, and when that is done, the impact that it's having. So that really stood out to us. And the breadth of engagement with the wide range of policy issues is, again, it really mirrors the kind of comprehensive understanding we have as an organisation of how many different myriad factors come together to affect young people's lives and create the barriers for them that we want to break. So plenty to welcome in the report.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you. Roman, what did you sort of see and find from the report?
Yeah, I think, the report builds on a fantastic day that we had back in June, despite battling with all of the travel concerns. And as you mentioned, I had the privilege of bringing down one of our amazing young people, Amy, who joined me on the panel hosted by Aisha. And fundamentally, I believe it's incredibly important that we bring this lived reality to a lot of these conversations. And for me, what's kind of stood out from the report, and it's credit to you guys and everyone that engaged on the day, is how quickly you've pivoted into practical solutions. And I know you said in the introduction that the timing is on our side. Some would say it's luck, some would say it's we probably know what we're doing as well in terms of sort of identifying this. But a lot of the conversations that I've had over the past decade when we talk about youth unemployment, I find myself coming back to a place of a need to apply pragmatism. Often we get kind of pulled into debates I think every single one of us, it's fair to say that every time the ONS releases their data sets, we've probably got a soundbite out there on some sort of media outlet. And typically with the media outlets, we're encouraged to pick a side or single someone out or say it's the government's fault or employer's fault. However, with the report that's released today, and for those of you that's listening, if you've not read the report yet, please do go and do that. It's some really tangible takeaways that doesn't single out a single problem. You know, it makes us all come together, you know, and on the day it was amazing, but on the back of the event, we're seeing lots of follow-up conversations as well regarding people just wanting to do more and apply that level of pragmatism.
Yeah, 100%. There's loads. I've had so many people say, "Oh, this has happened as a result of being together," and it's been really, really cool. Olly, the world has moved a little bit since June. Do you know what I mean? The world has moved a little bit in a day, as it does. And we've now got a new prime minister with a new focus on, particularly on devolution and local. You know, straight away mentioning youth employment, like over and over and over again on every one of the speeches, that has been, you know, a handful at the moment. You know, it's literally yesterday we got a new prime minister. I think the report is amazing for be able to help this new team that's going to be coming in places. Obviously, there'll be some existing, because you used to be in that type of role. Do you know what I mean? And there'll be new administration come in, and you'll be sort of advising in there. How are you sort of hoping, or what would you sort of want to share to be able to say, look, these are some things which we think would be really stand out? Because there's such a depth of expertise in that room. It wasn't like 64 of the same people. It was like such a depth of different perspectives to look at it. What sort of thing would you want to share in our new reality that we're in now, with a new prime minister, new focus, new approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you say, I think that the mechanism here is all through the Milburn review. So I've been super impressed by how outward facing, welcoming the Milburn team. They were with us on the day. You know, this is not like other reviews we've seen. Not going to name any names, but you know, countless reviews over the years where it feels a bit like a closed box. You can't get hold of anyone. The scope's really tight. This is very much a different approach we're seeing with their team being out and about, talking to lots of people, absorbing ideas, being open. So we're hoping that what we've got in the report and the work that we're doing alongside it will feed into Alan Milburn's second report, which will be coming up in the autumn. I think it's been pretty clear from our new PM that he's right behind that, and that he would be kind of supporting those recommendations, and this is one of the kind of big issues that he will be kind of wanting to make progress on and testing himself on. So it's great that we've got that kind of tacit support for those recommendations from kind of right up at the top. And I think there's a lot of the things that he signaled, even in those early speeches, in the direction of travel, which really speak to what we've got in this report. So absolutely, that kind of localism has shone out in everything that he's talked about, which is great. He's very clear, and we've seen probably Roman as well, because he's a Manchester-based person. You know, in his role as Mayor of Greater Manchester, he has been really open. He's been part of those conversations. He's been talking to young people. He's been out on visits, which has been really nice to see. That's you know, that's his thing. That's his way of doing things, which is great. And I think you know, it's very clear that he is setting an agenda for government where things are on the table that haven't been on the table before. So I guess that's the other element, is like in the past, we've probably all been involved in developing reports where we're like, well, this would be nice, but it's never going to happen because of blah, 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 blah. But it feels like now the narrative is much more like, actually, we really do want to solve these things. So if there are good ideas, then like suddenly the door is open to a bit more flexibility. I'm not suggesting that it's going to suddenly be loads more public money or anything, but it's a bit more of a can-do attitude. I think we're reading from those early speeches of like, if there are things that are going to make progress on this, then let's get on and do them. So again, as you say, with our good timing, it feels like there's a lot of threads there that link through, and I think the Milburn review will be the vehicle for the kind of recommendations and things we're talking about here to make its way into a government programme, hopefully in the autumn.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think what was interesting is that there was not just Milburn's team there was lots of different government departments there and stuck that were actually meant to be in different meetings, actually. They stuck, which was like really, really good. Baz, for you, the kind of things you picked up from what you were saying on the day, and in articles you've done, and in videos and stuff like that, was around supply side, like supporting employers to be able to have like sustainable jobs and work. What would you want to sort of pull out from that? Because new prime minister is talking about circuit breakers in politics, but also looking at the jobs from educate. You know, he's sort of rethinking on this. Yeah, what would you want to sort of pull out and highlight to different government departments in there to make sure that we're sort of moving forward? Because there's only 712,000 vacancies in that last quarter. We have 1 million NEETs. That's 712,000 for all of the labour market. We have 2.8 million people that are economically inactive due to ill health. Something's got to change to free up the supply side from employers, hasn't it, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the circuit breaker, change of direction approach that the Burnham government can take can be about creating a more hospitable business environment for a lot of organisations, because a lot of the challenges that they face that are making it difficult for them to hire people are the fact that they fundamentally just do not have enough demand for their services and therefore do not have the cash to be able to hire young people. Part of that is going to come from the push that we've had today about making things more affordable in the economy. That's going to help with increasing demand for services, and that's going to help that lots of employers have more money to be able to hire more young people and create more opportunities. I do think there is going to have to be a continued, quite muscular support package for employers that is targeted at helping them hire young people. So, for example, in the way that we've seen with the Youth Jobs Grant recently, which is a fund for individual employers to be able to hire young people who've been on universal credit for 6 months or more. What we hear from employers is that that's very welcome, but that isn't enough. That isn't going to be enough to fully incentivize them to take on young people. It might de-risk taking on young people to some extent, but it's not going to be a sufficient incentive. So I think that's what employers are really going to welcome here in terms of being able to create more of those opportunities. And I guess another thing that we've heard a lot from employers and indeed from other kind of key folks in the sector is seeing that kind of like brokerage at a local level to connect employers to young people in their area, to other support services in their local area, just to help them generally navigate and understand all the potential options that they have if they want to take on more young people. I think this aligns really nicely with the potential greater focus on devolution. It is, of course, the kind of the theme du jour with Andy Burnham coming in is devolution. So seeing some of that kind of like local capacity and power developed to provide that brokerage is something that I think we believe in at Youth Employment UK. But I think the thing that has to come through really strongly is that place-based, local delivery, all of that is really important. What's really key for us as well is that something sits over that as a kind of guarantee of quality, some kind of national framework, some kind of way of specifying what good looks like at the local level to make sure we're not seeing, cold spots in quality, postcode lotteries, gaps emerging between sites of this kind of local delivery. So I think there's a lot to play from, there's a lot to be excited about. The only thing I would add is that there is always a risk with the change of government that, some of these priorities might slip. There's, it's a very fluid political environment at the moment. What I think means that doesn't concern me as much as it might do in other circumstances is that I think that we on this call, we as a sector have just done such a good job of building such a strong public narrative around youth employment. And I think that's going to keep it front of mind and very visible for our current government. So hopefully all of that can push in the right direction in terms of improving outcomes for young people.
Yeah, no, definitely. Roman, can I ask you, there's quite a bit that we talked about on the day around the individual journey that NEETs are individuals. They've got families, they've got connections with them. Every one of those numbers, that 1 million is an individual with that missed opportunity, but with looking at local and looking at data, there's also the risk of things DFE were calling them phantom NEETs the other day. There's a missing massive chunk of NEETs. It depends on who you talk to because people don't actually know because they're missing. It's about 300,000 young people potentially are missing. What can we do to be able to scoop those people up so they don't fall off what a lot of government reports are calling cliff edges? How can we build more bridges? How can we make sure that we're not losing? Because talking about data is kind of boring normally, but it's kind of important if you're sort of looking at local, trying to look at local skills, trying to look at portability. Someone moves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People's lives are complex. Do you know what I mean? They're not like like linear. Like I'm going to do that. The more someone is at risk, the more it's going to be tricky for them to actually hit into those loops. What would you want to sort of share to future administration around those phantom missing NEETs? How do we make sure we don't let people drop off a cliff?
I mean, we've got a way of coming up with these sexy and overcomplicated terms in this world, haven't we? You know, ultimately, the main point here is that struggle to reach the young people. The young people in which that form that bracket have traditionally felt let down by services, or they've experienced a fragmented journey, and I think that's got to be the starting point. You know, to an extent, I welcome the new change in government. I am very much a proud Manc, and I was no stranger about saying that on the day. And you know, there's that special tingle of the Manchesterism and the things that we do differently kind of thing. But fundamentally, for most young people, it doesn't really matter. We can make policy announcements, we can talk about the million plus, but it doesn't actually feel like things are changing for them. So I think that's where language becomes incredibly important. And also the way that we go about things. You know, unfortunately, we've become a world, or especially within this space, where, you know, funding shouldn't be a dirty word. It is very important, of course, but ultimately, when you know you're chasing large scale funding pots, the experience for the young person changes. Now, ultimately, as policy experts and big large prime providers, that's our role to worry about statistics, language, and funding bids and all of that stuff. The experience on the ground for a young person can't change, because fundamentally it stinks, the fact that process feels transactional for them. It shouldn't, you know, and I welcome a point around circuit breaking, but let's not forget there's also some amazing, you know, I've got some great VSC colleagues across the UK, really small grassroots charities that are doing amazing work. Let's not reinvent the wheel here. Let's give them the spotlight that they deserve and really kind of turn up the dial. I mean, I love what Baz was saying around that kind of standardized national approach to drive quality, because yes, we can innovate, you know, and I'm someone that's bootstrapped a brand new kind of grassroots charity to try and bring together kind of employers, communities, etc. But ultimately, there's got to be quality controls around that, and a standardized approach that we can all work towards. So that, you know, I of course wish Andy all of the best in his term in government, but ultimately, youth unemployment runs deeper than that, you know, and there's got to be a cross-party commitment to whatever solutions are drawn up through the Milburn review and beyond.
Yeah, 100%, and I agree with that as well. I think, you know, NPAC all sounds cool. There's a trial. West of England is talking about something, but it needs to be portability within there. It needs to be a standardisation, so as someone in Manchester knows what, if someone's got a quote from West of England, they know what it is. Do you know what I mean? And stuff, that it's actually got some sort of currency of qualification and stuff like that. Yeah, Wayne's got a really good point here, and this is actually in the report, Wayne. So you need to check it out, about the term NEET. So we didn't say this actually at the beginning of the call, but actually on the day, Olly made it really, really clear that no one really likes the term NEET. It's not NEET, but it's a standardized term globally. That's why we've used it, and particularly with policy people who are in the room and we're sharing it with policy people. That's the whole reason why we've done that, Wayne, actually. So totally agree. But if, like as Roman was saying, if we keep making up new terminology, then it just makes it more confusing for us to get our point across. So that's the whole reason why we've done that. But I agree, Wayne, maybe we need to come up with consensus on a better name for NEET. Time is disappearing. So what would you want to see moving forward from the report with the new government administration for us to be able to break these barriers? And Wayne, again, this is the whole reason why we didn't have the term NEET in the title of this, actually, is we wanted to break those barriers. Olly, what would you want to see moving forward?
Yeah, just on that point about terminology, couldn't agree more. We've got a strand of our work called "What's in a Word," where we look at different terminology in the policymaking space, the baggage it carries, what buttons it pushes, and we're going to have our whole autumn focus on NEET and surrounding terms to try and unpack that, because you're absolutely right. But we don't have a good alternative yet. But let's work on it together. Where would I like this to go? I would like to keep working with the brilliant team behind the Milburn Review. I'd like this to inform their work. I'd like to see lots of what we heard on the day from these experts who between them have centuries of expertise collectively. You know, we know the answers to this. I think that's one key thing. Like, this is not an area where we need loads more research to tell us the answers. We know what works. and it's things like, you know, more flexible approaches. It's things like trusted adults and mentors. It's things like really good quality vocational provision. So I feel like it's an area where collectively we know the answer. We're pretty much on the same page. Of course, there'll be kind of tweaks around the edges, but broadly we're on the same page. And it's about kind of government helping to pick that up, put in that central kind of onus and responsibility, as Baz was saying, and then of course kind of make sure that the funding and the kind of levers are there to make it happen.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Baz, what would you want to see sort of moving forward? What would you want to see as the next stage?
I think to take a lot of the lessons from the report, but indeed from a lot of what else is being said by lots of the folks in the room at the Breaking Barriers event, and for the Melbourne Review to really kind of take it on board, metabolize it, and have it come through in the system blueprint that they're developing for their recommendations, and for that system blueprint to be something that not only the government gets behind, establishing, installing, embedded as like a permanent feature of how our country works, as a permanent arm of the public sector, but that it's something that fundamentally employers, other folks who work on youth employment, young people can all get behind and will have buy-in into, and that this ultimately becomes something which works so reliably, dependably, and produces such good outcomes for young people that in 10 years' time, we are no longer talking about a NEET crisis. We're no longer talking about NEETs as a, if it's using the term at all, we're no longer talking about youth unemployment in anywhere near the terms that we're talking about it now. And instead, we are using the opportunities that have come from getting so many young people into education, employment, or training to be tackling other issues.
Yeah, 100%. John, I'm going to throw your question in because I was about to ask Roman actually, but I think it's interesting, which I'll try to cover in my section in a bit. It is interesting; it's all coming together in one head. But I'll try to answer that in a minute for you, John. Roman, what would you want to see sort of moving forward?
I think it links to the previous question. Was it Wayne that put it in around the terminology of NEET? You know, I completely echo the sentiments. You know, I was someone that was kicked out of school at 14. Nobody stopped to ask why, but the reality was I was skipping school to go to consultants appointments with my mum. So I think we have to stop putting people into this box kind of thing. And, you know, I have the pleasure now of meeting some amazing young people, Amy being one of them. We did a piece with the iPaper, and one of our young people, Callum, shared his experiences really bravely, you know, and I think it's important we create space for people to share. But I would just like to apply a little bit of pragmatism, stop and ask young people why they're in that situation, and create space that everybody has someone in their corner. And I think that rolls off the tongue as a term, right? But it's the people that are in their corner that it feels organic. You know, I shared on the day, my careers advisor, Linda, has been fantastic to me over the years. She's 77 years old now, retired, still connects with me on Facebook and literally shares everything that I'm up to. But I remember at the time when she reached back out to me, I felt like, you know what, she actually does care. And that's the reason why I engaged with her. So I think it's that, you know, creating spaces where people are empowered to be that person for someone else, because we all have a collective responsibility for this agenda.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also it comes a data set within there as well. We have got the technology. AI is amazing if used in the right way. Obviously, it needs to have guardrails on it. Obviously, it needs to be thinking of safeguarding, because this could be at-risk young people, etc., etc. But it can flag up data sets which might not be obvious to an individual, and maybe have it so as it could actually be a really good safeguarding to do a flag to say this person isn't turn up on a Tuesday because they might be looking after a caring sort of responsibility on a Tuesday when they should be about. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's ways to do that. And John, answering your question would wrap into mine a little bit, because I've got to talk fast. So I'd be looking for more bridges than cliff edges. We hear cliff edges all the time in reports. It's kind of does my head in. Why, when you fall off of a cliff, I imagine it being quite a high cliff, and it's going to take, as Olly knows, going to need to have a helicopter winch them up, do you know what I mean, and be able to patch them together, and it's going to take a long time to be able to fix that. Why can't we have better pathways to be able to not come to a cliff edge at the end, and also have better bridges so as they don't actually fall off? We can actually find them much easier. And I think qualification reform, has got a problem of potentially causing a distraction from different people, but also employers understanding what it is, but also employers are going through massive problems with affording to be able to have staff full stop, let alone anyone. So I think there's a lot of things need to change, and I just hope the government can work together for that. So I just want to also say thank you to everyone. Thanks everyone for today. Thanks everyone for joining us live. Thanks for the questions. Edge, like Olly, the team are amazing in bringing this all together and doing a really report that really distilled everything down for everyone. I want to say thanks to OAL as well about giving us a different output for media, from video to the live stream today. But everyone at the collective rolled up their sleeves, was brave, shared their ideas and solutions. Thank you. We wouldn't be here without you, and hopefully you can hear your voice in the collective report. Everyone, get into it, have a look at the report, share it. The only way we're actually going to make some change is if we try to do things differently. So please just join us on this mission. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you.